back to another episode of My Best Friend's an Engineer. I'm Lexi.
And I'm Libby.
And today we have an exciting episode for you. So it's a little different setup. It's a what would you do situation. So basically, Libby and I will go back and forth. We'll set up the situation and then we will explain how we will react to that situation or how we address it.
Yes, so this will be kind of like an advice style podcast where we describe the situation, we say what we would do, and then we have a couple stories to go with each of the scenarios. But before we get into it, Lexi, how was your week? Let us know the tea of the week. How's it been going for you?
So my week has been, I'm going to rate it like a 6 out of 10. It's not been, I feel like last week was also a bad week, but we had an audit, so it was an internal audit, but it was at a site that I support. So this was kind of the first time that my work was scrutinized, and it's an internal audit, so it's not like I would go to FDA jail or anything, but it was very stressful. It was so stressful, and our auditors are so good and just well respected in general. So, and I audited with one of the girls that was there, so I kind of know how she works. I know how tough she is. So I was pretty stressed. So like 3 of the days I was going back and forth and trying to help the site answer, and I'm remote. So it was kind of hard getting all these little messages and being like, okay, hold on, like 1 second. But it was so much better, I think, to help remotely than be in the, war room. It's what they call it, like with the auditors and the people on site. So yeah, so it was hectic because of that. But honestly, I'm not doing anything this weekend. I refuse. I'm protecting my peace. I'm doing nothing.
More power to you. We love to see that.
I think that phrase is so funny, protect your peace, because I think it's so dramatic.
We stand drama.
So I'm protecting it. It's like there's a moat around it. No way.
This is tea of the week, so you can be as dramatic as you want to be.
So that's what I'm doing this weekend. I'm rejuvenating. I'm going to catch up on work that I missed because of the audit. And yeah, but other than that, just living and learning.
See, we do an audit when we are like trying to validate a new product on the line. I don't know if they're at all similar, but I know it's like so stressful for like our like reliability people, because we just have like a giant white like piece of paper and everyone just goes around like writing all the things that they see wrong, and then at the end of it it's like, oh my god, how are we gonna fix all these things?
Yeah. Well, it's so helpful because we're so well prepared when, a regulatory body actually comes in and asks these questions, because once again, like I said, there's so like such smart people auditing us that work on our internal audit group. So it helps a lot. And I did learn a lot, and I kind of realized that I do like that. Like, I feel like when I started my job, I wanted to stray away from that. I just wanted to be comfortable and like do things correctly. But I feel like when they catch you in little mistakes, that's when I feel like I'm learning the most. So it was kind of refreshing. So nothing crazy happened. I didn't get an observation, so that was good. But it was just good practice, like a little adrenaline rush for how to answer those questions. But how about you? You have had a tough week, girly girl. It's not okay.
It has just been really hectic. So I feel like the reason why it's been hectic is because, one, I had like 4 presentations that I had to put together this week and to present on. And presentations are just so challenging because like my company loves them, but my company also is really like, I don't know, like they just want it to be pretty pictures. So you're kind of like walking a fine line of like just having not enough information, but then having too much information. It's like, how do I take all of this crazy thing that's happening and shrink it down into 1 or 2 slides on a PowerPoint? So I don't know, that has been crazy. And then also we did a team bonding activity on Tuesday this week where the whole team that does like the vacuums, fans, lights, and then like the heated gear and stuff, we all went out and did karaoke because we have 3 people who are leaving our department to go to, they're going to the lawnmower department, so we're a little bit salty.
Oh, geez. The inside people lost them to the outside people.
So we're like all making fun of them. We're like, go have fun with lawnmowers. But it was super funny because we did karaoke, and like at first nobody was really singing. It was like a struggle to get people to sign up. And then like we got at the place, we had it rented out. We had a back room rented out to like celebrate these people going to a different department. Everyone got there at 3, and we were there until 11:30 p.m.
Oh,
singing
my
karaoke.
Gosh. You crazy people over there in the little lighting department in the vacuums.
It was so funny, and people were singing like Taylor Swift, and everybody was like singing like old school Taylor Swift, you know, like Taylor Swift that we sang like in high school and stuff. Like You Belong With Me and stuff like that.
Oh, classic.
And by the end of the night, the drinks had been flowing. We had some great songs. I soloed and I did Nicki Minaj Super Bass. So
excellent choice.
I was up there and I was like, this one was for the boys of the boomer system. Got time to sing with the boomer system, and they come up in the club, they be blazing up. And everybody was like, their faces were like, what is this girl
That
doing?
is so funny. That is so funny. Did anyone else solo, or were you the only solo?
There were a couple solos, and then there's this one kid in our, I shouldn't say kid, man, this one man in our group who, he did a cappella in college, so he was like,
oh,
whoa, you know, like he had this most angelic voice.
So he was singing opera.
He chose like kind of like old school songs, like old school, like, I want to say like yippie songs. I don't think that's like the name.
Yippie songs?
But you know, like
jazz?
Kind of like step snap, like Walking on Sunshine type vibe.
Okay.
Like YMCA type vibe, but he was like singing them really excellently.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just really funny. And so that was like our big hurrah for the team, which it was so fun, but like Tuesdays are usually the day that I like stay at work for like 12 hours because Tuesdays I was just
but you did though.
That's true.
I mean, you did. That was like a what, 14-hour day for you? 7 to 11.
Tuesdays are usually my day where I'm like, everything that I procrastinated from Friday and Monday I get done on Tuesdays. So no, it's been a good week though. It's just been like a lot going on, but in a good way. So
it's good that you prioritized your golf on Wednesday.
My gosh.
I liked that.
Yeah, so then
that was good.
With all these presentations, I was like, I am not giving up my one day a week that I go golfing with my golf ladies for work. I'm still gonna golf. So, yeah.
As you should. I feel like we all forget that because I'm the same way. Like, I will just prioritize work over doing something like wholesome or with family or friends. But no, we can't do that. We have to time manage.
I know. And then I was like, you know what?
Little balance.
I was like, I can go home and continue working if I need to. And I did a little bit, but you know what? I was like then happy that I did end up going golfing. So, yeah. That is how hot. Oh my God, I cannot speak today. That is how my week has been. I can't speak because I'm like so burnt out for the week, but I think we can probably get into tea of the week from our listeners.
Yes. You wanna read us yours?
Okay, yeah. So you guys, if you want to participate in Tea of the Week and be a part of this awesome, hilarious, funny segment with these funny chicks of us, these funny chicks that you listen to. If you want to be a part of this, you just go follow our Instagram at My Best Friend's an Engineer, and then once a week we put up a little question box and we ask you guys what drama is going on in your life. So we got some really good ones this week. Catherine said, a coworker asked me out and I am conflicted because he's cute, but I don't want to be that girl. And I feel you.
Isn't that the worst? That's the worst.
I don't know. Would you date a coworker?
Because you're like, oh my God, we could get lunch. I don't know. That's a really hard question. I think I would.
You would?
I think I would. I feel like they would have to be in a different department though.
Okay, I get that.
But again, we've talked about this before on one of our last, episodes. It's meeting people after school is so hard.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have Joey, like, where do you meet him? I don't want to do the apps. Like, I don't care enough to say, hi, how are you? How's your day?
Right.
And then I show up and meet him and his voice is like, a little high-pitched girl. Like, no, that's a waste of time.
That's a waste of your time, exactly.
Like, that's my biggest fear.
I feel like I would if it was
a work thing.
I feel like I would if it was a different department, like you said.
Yeah. It's just the work thing. It's so convenient. It's fun. Like, you can go get lunch. Like, it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
But then again, do you get annoyed with, like, seeing them too much? It's just, there's so many variables. But I would, probably.
And I feel like I only would if the other person's desk was not by my desk. because then if it didn't work out, if I had to like every day that I come into work, I have to walk by their desk, that would be terrible. Then you'd have to like alter your routine on how you get to your desk because you wouldn't want to see them. So I think, I don't know.
And then you break up.
Yeah, what if you break up? I don't know. Catherine, girl, that is some tea. That is some drama. You'll have to keep us updated and let us know if you do end up going out with him. And maybe he's cute. You said
maybe
he's
there's
cute.
A love story. Maybe, yeah. There's a love story starting in our tea of the week. Let us keep us updated. Okay. So Rihanna said, the thing getting me through the work days is the satisfaction of knowing I'll be leaving soon. I really wanted to read this one out because when I changed my first job, the 2 weeks before I left were the best. I was so happy, and I was in DC, so every day I made a point to go and see like the monuments or like go to a restaurant or like, and obviously I was going out with my coworkers, so it was so fun in that sense. So I totally get it. And congratulations for whatever is your next step, but enjoy.
I feel like I feel like I was a really bad worker in my last, probably not my last. I do remember when I just left my job the second to last week, I still had like quite a few responsibilities because I was trying to wrap things up. But then the last week, like I was truly, I was pretty much just trying to get other people onboarded to my projects at that point so that they had a transitionary period. So not much was happening on my end.
I actually kept so busy because we were like validating these bioreactors. So once you finish the validation of a bioreactor, you got to put a label on it with your initials. So I wanted to get as many initials on there.
That's so typical you.
That's so it was like, they're like, oh, you don't have to do that. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. And I was also like, I'm never going to be in this marshmallow suit. Well, honestly, I was like hoping. I was hoping that I wouldn't be in it. Like,
I'm never going to be in this marshmallow suit again.
I was like, I need to take advantage of gowning in. And you know what? I wish, like, okay, we're digressing so much. Oh my gosh. You know what I wish? I wish I started posting content from when I worked that job because I flew every Friday and every Sunday night or Monday morning back. I would go in these marshmallow suits. I was in a different city. Like, there was so much content that I could have, I could have taken, it would have been so much fun. I don't know. Now I just sit in my room and find sounds and put captions on them. So you guys are missing out on that content. I apologize.
You know what? Never say never. Maybe one day. Maybe one day the marshmallow suits will be back.
Yeah, my boss is going to say you're on site every day now. Be like, oh, God. Okay, awesome. Well, like Libby said, go check out our Instagram for the tea of the week as well as our first event.
Yes.
What is it, Libby?
I was going to say, we have some exciting news before we get into it, and we're hosting our very first professional development event. We are so excited for this. I know that when we did Theta Tau in college, professional development is one of the pillars, and so we had a lot of professional development events. They were some of my favorite, so we're total geeks about all things negotiation, resumes, anything professional, and we're going to do an event for you guys on negotiation for all things compensation.
Kind of rhymed. But yes, and I'm super excited about this because I would not know where to go with negotiation. And I know we talked about this with Break Your Budget on that episode. She talked about how, you need to negotiate, as well as how she negotiated guaranteeing her bonus and her offer letter. That's going to stick with me always. So I'm really excited about this, and this is presented by the Thoughtful Co. So stay tuned, check out our Instagram, sign up for your ticket. We have limited availability, so we're hoping everyone who wants to join can.
Yes, and it's going to be on a Tuesday evening in October 18th. So yeah, more updates to come, but we wanted to release that in this episode, and every episode from here on out, we're going to be telling you guys about it. So get pumped, get excited, get ready to learn how to negotiate. And yeah, I think with that, we can probably get into the bulk of today's episode. All right, let's get into it. So we have a couple scenarios here that we're going to walk through. We're going to outline what is the scenario, what would we do, what is our advice, and then if we have any stories. So this first one that we want to talk about is, what do you do when somebody sends you an angsty email at your corporate job? Or I guess this could technically be in college, but all of these really are I guess the context is in corporate. So Lexi, how about you go up first? What is your advice for how would you respond to an angsty email?
Okay, so I'm going to be upfront and blunt. I look up the person immediately on LinkedIn. I get their info. I get where did they go to school? What's their background? What's their position? What do they look like if they have a picture? And this is a petty way. And I wanted to start that way because we're relatable. And I would love to be a good person. I would love to be the bigger person. I get so frustrated sometimes because okay. So I will give a backstory, and I wanted to attach some like little stories to these. So look them up on LinkedIn. That's the first thing. Then I draft an angsty email back. I get it all out. I just need to. And then I let it simmer. I do not send. I do not make any advances. I let it simmer. And then I come back to it when I am more clear-headed and probably in a better mood. Maybe it's the next day. And then, yes, because we have to be professional. I got my immaturity out with the LinkedIn. And so then I make the edits and then send if needed. And I'll go back. I'll touch on a different point, whether I send it or whether I don't. But I'm not the bigger person most of the time. Well, I don't want to say that. Like, I'm not the bigger person in the sense that I'm immature. I'm not the bigger person in the sense that if you're mean, I will probably answer. But I will answer professionally and succinct, and I will prove my point.
And I think it depends, too, because, like, you're mostly virtual, and I'm now mostly in person. So I think that definitely also depends. Like, if you never really see this person face-to-face, like, I totally would, like, look them up on LinkedIn, too, because then you don't know what they look like.
Definitely, yeah.
Unless, does your company, like, my company requires that everybody has a picture so that if we do have a Teams meeting, everybody has a picture. Does your company, like, do they require that? No. Okay.
We don't, yeah. So my name, no one knows what I look like unless they look. And I actually just changed my last name on my LinkedIn to my middle name so people can't find me.
There you go. We love a stealthy girl.
Stealthy queen. So, okay, and I'll tell a story that this happened. So there was a situation where I was working on a project, and I was working with our quality management system, which is how you keep all the documents. So you keep the digital and electronic procedures, SOPs, anything, even some quality records of like past testing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's basically the main one that everyone uses. So it was just an improvement project. I don't usually work with the QMS system. So I was tasked with updating this document, and I was working with the actual team for that QMS system. And something happened. I don't know if it was on the team's end or because we had to rechange it. I think the QMS system was just having issues in general. So it sent out a duplicate email of asking people to retrain on a document that they had to train on 2 days prior. And someone sent the meanest email. Like, it was ridiculous, and I was so frustrated. What is wrong with people? Even the people on my improvement team. That's what I mean. I'm not the bigger person in situations where I don't have to be. Does that make sense? So I
what did they say?
I drafted it, and I was like, da, da, da. So they're like, this is ridiculous that this was duplicated twice. This has been.
I would say go suck up. I'm not gonna say it, but go suck one.
Exactly. So the way I responded was, I said the person's name. I didn't say hello, which is crazy for me. I'm like, usually, hello, how are you? So I say, person's name. This has already been brought to our attention. This is addressed. And then I didn't even sign it. Yeah. So, and going back, I think my initial draft was so kind of you to bring this to bother enough to bring this to our attention that it, bothers
so kind of take time out of your day to then waste time in my day to point something out that has already been pointed out, sir.
Yeah, and the people messaged me on my team because they were all CC'd on that. Or maybe I added them as well. I actually added them on the chain because I wanted everyone to see how this person reacted. Because that is just, okay, it's frustrating, but it's an email. My God, get over it. Like, geez, we all get tons of emails. So I CC'd them, and then they messaged me right away, what is her problem? Like, what? I was like, I'm never doing this task again. Yeah. It's like, I never want to deal with this QMS. So that is, in that situation, it was an improvement project. It was just with a colleague. It was not a project that I was working on with my direct manager. But if it was a project that did require my direct manager, I would definitely send it to him first before responding. So, for example, someone that was really high up at one of the sites I was working at sent a very frustrated and angsty email about why this testing is taking so long and why the requirements are needed. So I immediately, this guy is probably 4 levels higher, much older than I am. I just knew that was not my place. So I CC'd my boss. I explained the whole situation. I typed it out and I said, I already explained to this individual why we need to do this test. I attached that email to it and I sent it to my manager. And I said, he's pushing before these requirements are met. Just so you know, FYI. So then he jumped on a call with me and then he responded to him offline and he said, okay, just you respond to the whole thread and do exactly what you sent to me. Say, I've already explained this and addressed this, why it needs to be done. Please see email attachment. So very professionally, but that is the type of situation I would CC my manager if I get an angsty email. Okay, and then just in general, you have to think, do I engage or do I ignore? And clearly from my previous answers, I don't really ignore it, but if you do engage, you just have to think, will this affect me in 2 weeks? Do I need to engage? Do I have to address this, or will it, in 2 weeks, will it be an issue?
That's a really good perspective to try to simmer your fire, your passion for responding. Like, is this really necessary? Will it affect me?
Definitely. So, did I have to respond to that lady about the QMS system? No. Was I a little feisty? I was a little feisty.
Maybe.
But at least I edited it. I took some time and I simmered down. That's my recommendation. Never send it right away.
Yeah.
Always take some time. It's not as serious in the moment. And it makes you look much better. Because again, paper trails, emails are always going to be there. Even if you delete them, your company will have a way to retain it.
Yeah.
No matter what. So those are my 2 cents. My little Twitter fingers in Outlook.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty much going to echo a lot of your points there. Like, the only other things that I could say is that I typically take the approach of, like, not responding, unless it's also a little grain of salt for everyone listening. If this is, like, absolutely out of line, toxic type of email, obviously go to HR, but we're not talking about this type of emails. I feel like I just have to do a disclaimer, because otherwise people listening are going to be like, why aren't you sticking up for yourself or telling me, whatever. So anyway, definitely I would CC my manager and kind of what you said, pref my manager a little bit before I CC him or her, well, in this case, him, so that he kind of like knows what's going on. Also, I find that, like, if you don't show a reaction sometimes, like, that person feels really embarrassed. And sometimes we have a point later on talking about, like, in-person meetings, and I'm going to bring this up again, but sometimes, like, if you don't respond, the person just, you look like the bigger person. People come to you, kind of like what you said, and they're like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Why did that person blow up via email? What is wrong with them? And it just, like, in the long run, your lasting impression on people you work with is, like, more positive. If it is dealing with something that you've already talked about with somebody else or with the team, I always keep meeting notes. So after I have a meeting, I'll send out meeting notes of what we talked about, who attended the meeting. So in that case, I would just go back in my emails, find that meeting minutes and attach it and say, either see attached, you were present for this meeting, or see attached, here's what we talked about. And always preface, like, previous email chains. I did have an experience in my previous job. I was working with a customer, and the previous job was working on power plant, like, maintenance and refurbishment. And we had a customer who they had already given us a PO to do work, but in our proposal language, it had said, like, work will be done on a mutually agreed upon timeline, because we just didn't know when they wanted to do it. We knew that they had to do it within the year, but we didn't know when. So we had a production meeting every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the shop would be like, okay, Libby, when are we doing this work? And every single meeting for, like, seriously 2 months, I would have to be like, sorry guys, I still don't have an update for you. So what I would do to this customer is every Monday I would send them an email, like, do you have an update? Do you have an update? Do you have an update? And I would send it back on the same email chain, so you could see that I reached out to this person, like, for 5 weeks in a row with no response. And finally, he emailed me back. Later, I found out the company was, like, going through the process of filing for bankruptcy, so I'm sure he had a lot of other things on his mind. But later, he had finally responded, and he was like, Miss Brooks, I don't know how many times you have to reach out to me for you to understand that I am not going to respond right now with your timeline. I am not the person to make this decision, so please stop emailing me. And, like, okay, first of all right, little Mr. Immature, like, you're taking your anger out on a 25-year-old girl who is just doing her job, okay? Like, let's internalize that and reflect on that, because you, sir, have issues. And then
let's internalize that.
Maybe you should go to therapy because you just exploded via email. Second of all, I like showed all my coworkers. I was like, look at this email I got. Like, oh my gosh. Pulled my manager and let him know what was going on. And he was like, yeah, just don't respond. Like, we'll wait for them to come to us in that sense. So I think what I ended up responding was, I think I said, like, have a nice day or something. Like, because he was being, he sent that really angsty email.
Auf Wiedersehen.
And then I think I was just like, oh, and I'm pretty sure this was like right when I was leaving my company too. So I responded back and I said, I will no longer be your point of contact for this project. I have moved on to a new company. Have a great day. And that was that.
Yeah. And you would think he would know by now, or I don't know how long he's been working, but to at least respond, I don't have an update for you. I'll have an update. No,
that was the thing. He never responded.
Maybe...
He was ignoring me. I'm like, dude, that's why I keep... And he also wouldn't answer my phone calls, nothing. So I was like, okay, you are bad at your job.
Yeah. Also, one good point that I want to bring back to is how you mentioned you were in the office most days. So that kind of brings you back from responding on an angsty email-wise. That is so true, because you don't want to ruin that rapport or that, interaction or relationship with your coworkers. I would hate that.
Yeah.
I want full reign. I want no leash. I want to be able to send my emails without seeing them.
Yeah, I know that it definitely can be tough. I mean, I feel like I've had more experiences with angsty emails in my previous role, and like, don't get me wrong, it can be emotionally exhausting. I mean, I remember getting an angsty email one time of a guy calling me out saying that I messed up, which we're going to get to on the next one, but that I had messed up on estimating cost, and he was like, how come nobody checked your work? Why did you fail at this so poorly? Like, very unprofessional email on his part. But I was just like, at the email, and I started crying, and I was like, I'm going to get fired. Like, looking back, I'm like, girl, you're so dramatic. You should have just poked him back.
So how would you respond in that? How would you respond in that sense? And I know we're also going to touch on this. We keep saying that, but I feel like our questions are building off of each other, which I like.
Yeah.
But how did you respond in that situation?
Well, first I called my manager immediately, and I was like, did I actually fuck up on this? Because I don't know, like, we had so many reviews to figure out what the cost would be, and I was presenting the same thing, and like I think we had like 3 reviews. So I was like, nobody had told me this prior to me him sending this to the customer. So where did I be in the wrong? So I tried to just like stick with the facts. He helped me fix it, and then I just responded to that email, and I said, yep, you're right. So sorry about that. I see that the copy that I sent you on X date had the incorrect cost estimated. I've had this double checked with my manager. Here's the new cost estimate. So that's what I ended up doing. But I think we can probably, that can probably lead us into the next scenario, if you want to introduce it.
All right. So our next question is, how do you deal with any mistakes you make?
Yes. So I think this one can be really tough. But overall, what I've learned in the past like 2.5 years working in corporate is that you just have to be honest. And something that I try to remind myself is, like, especially since everybody that we work with is older than us, they have made so many mistakes before, and people like don't expect you to be perfect. But I think what makes a really big difference when you make a mistake is like how quickly you react, what your attitude is when you get called out on your mistake, and like what you do to come up with a solution. So like, I think the best thing that you can do is first of all, confirm with your manager that you are in the wrong, because I think, especially in corporate, it's really important to have clarity on like exactly what you did wrong. Like, I think sometimes when emotions are running high, someone can be like, you messed this up. And it's like, okay, but what aspect did I mess up on? I think that's really important that you figure that out. Like I mentioned earlier, it's like the way that you deal with it is what sets you apart. So actions speak louder than words. Come up with a plan on how you're going to not make the mistake in the future, and then actually follow through with your plan. If you say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I I did not estimate that cost correctly, and then you gave them a new cost estimate and it was wrong again, like, oh, then they're really going to be pissed off, and like you might, have repercussions within your job. But if you say, oh my God, so sorry, you are right, I totally, maybe don't say totally. You are right, I messed up this cost estimate.
Totally, you're totally wrong or right, dude.
Thanks, you're totally wrong, you're totally right. But then, make sure you double check it before you send it out and get it right. And, people are going to remember the times that you like made a mistake and how quickly you fixed it. They're not going to remember the mistake. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think I'm aligned.
I'm aligned.
No, I totally. Oh my God, I just said totally, but I definitely agree with you on the aspect of being transparent and communicating early. As soon as you noticed it, I think you need to take action. It's gonna be a snowball, and it's just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I did like what you mentioned about coming up with a solution. So whenever I find a problem, I always try to have at least one solution when I bring it to my manager. So I'll tell you a story of when I made a mistake. So this was recent, and I talked about this in the last episode. So I had a project. I had to analyze data for weeks, just tons of data. Okay, I didn't check if it was normally distributed. You have to do that before you do analysis. So in these types of situations, if it's completely on me, maybe this is frowned upon, but I show how frustrated I am with my manager. I say, I'm really disappointed in myself. I wish this didn't happen, and this won't happen again. Just so he understands. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe it's like scolding. Maybe you shouldn't bring that emotion in. But so, for example, a recent story, and I brought this up in our last episode, was how for a project I had to analyze weeks and weeks of data, and I didn't check if it was normally distributed first before conducting the analysis. And he actually caught it. So that was just a whammy. That was a slap in the face. Yeah, I was like, oh, crap. Okay. So, I took a little bit of time before responding just to I was Googling normal distribution.
You're like, I know I learned about this. Why can't I find any information on it on the internet?
Yeah. I was so frustrated. And, I told him, I said, okay, I'm going to download the software. This is how I can do this. And I know that this data isn't normally distributed, and now I know it, all this stuff. And then after, a few hours, I told him, I said, I'm so frustrated with myself. This will not happen again. I apologize for this. And maybe that's frowned upon to scold yourself, but I just wanted him to be clear that I was really bothered by my mistake. And so then I had to present with a director level at 3 p.m. And I had to tell him, half this data is not normally distributed. We can't even consider it in this meeting. So we have to set up a future meeting when I'm able to fix it. And he told me in our one-on-one later that week, he's like, you handled it really well in that meeting for how frustrated you said you were. So I was so mad. And I told him I wasn't faking that I was frustrated, but I was still able to act professionally and just deal with it. But I did want to emphasize to him that I was frustrated. So basically, I guess in summary, be transparent, communicate well, and sometimes it's okay to bring a little bit of emotion to the workplace, because I want my manager to know how much that bothered me and how much I'd rather not mess up, So.
My mentor, whenever I've talked to him about this issue before, because I totally share the same feelings as you do with being frustrated with yourself, especially I think as a woman, in engineering or in STEM, you feel like everything that you do, you have to be right, and if it's wrong, people look down upon you, or at least, that's how I feel sometimes. And I brought this up to my mentor, and he was like, just think of it this way, wouldn't you rather someone just be mad at you today and you get it over with than thinking about how mad somebody's going to be at you in the future? He's like, just present what you did wrong. Like you mentioned, Lexi, come with a solution. I think the worst thing that you can do if you mess up and you recognize that you made a mistake is freak out or do nothing. Well, maybe do nothing is the worst thing you can do. But the second worst thing you can do is freak out and then go to your manager and be like, I messed up. Well, then they're going to be like, okay, well, what do you need to do to fix it? That doesn't give your manager any information. I really think you need to come prepared with options. You need to figure out how that's going to like impact everybody else's work, your like options. If somebody is waiting on you for something and you made a mistake, well, maybe that's going to push out their timeline and it's going to change their priorities, whatever. I think you need to think of those things. I also think it's important when you make mistakes is you like document them. So I've been doing this with feedback as well as mistakes, but I have my little action item tracker, and anytime I make a mistake, I will put the date of the mistake. I write a description of what it is. And then I do like actions taken. So then I will put like what I did differently so that I fixed it or something. And I haven't had to go through a quarterly or yearly review yet, but, you know, I think that could be a really awesome opportunity for you to highlight your strengths or like even, you know, ask for a raise and be like, look at all these mistakes I made and then look at all these actions that I took. Like I did something to, you know, make it better for myself and everybody else that I'm working with. And so definitely just want to highlight, you should, if you can, try to document when and what you're doing.
Definitely. I really like that. And I feel like it's very hard for people to come to terms with their mistakes, so they definitely don't want to write it down. But that just makes it more clear. And it also helps in the future. You're like, okay, I had this, you know, issue before. How did I deal with it? I can't remember. Yeah. It's been a year and all these other projects. But boom, you have your little action plan right there. And one thing I wanted to touch on with the frustration aspect, and I know you kind of touched on that when you mentioned you don't want to come to your manager and freak out right away. I wasn't, you know, saying, I'm so sad, oh my God, crying face, crying emoji, crying gif. The way I worded it was, just so you know, I'm very frustrated with myself that this happened. This will not happen again. Just very, very short message, you know? And he's probably like, oh, this girl,
and
she's sad.
You could always like, but I think you could always say that and then be like, I'm working on a plan for how I can remedy this situation. Like, I'm just thinking, like, I'm going to call it my sister right now. I know when my sister, she's not an engineer for background, but I know when my sister makes a mistake in anything, she, like, freaks out, and she's just like, like, I don't know how to fix. I'm like, oh, my God, calm down. You're good. Let's figure out a solution. We can do it.
Yes, definitely. So, yeah, you don't have to cry, but I think and they do appreciate that, actually. My manager was saying, he's like, I appreciate how much you want to do your job well. Like, I was working late, you know, one day this week, and he's like, I appreciate. He saw me logged on. It was the weird, oh hey, are you still working? I was like, oh God, hello.
That awkward. Is that you?
Yeah,
you up?
Yeah, but they do appreciate that, and he's like, I appreciate how much how frustrated you were. He said that was a good sign. I was like, yeah, I just hope it doesn't happen again. So yeah.
All right, we have one more scenario that we are going to go over in this episode. We have a ton more that we came up with solutions with, so maybe we'll do a part 2 to this because this is kind of fun to like talk about what we would do. But this last one we want to talk about is, what do you do when someone is completely inappropriate to you in a meeting or loses your temper in front of you and other team members towards you? So, Lexi, take it away. Give us your best advice for how to engage in this situation.
Yes. So usually whenever someone gets mad at me in my position, it is just because they're frustrated with the testing requirements that have to be done and kind of how they delay production in general. And I just remind them, these tedious requirements, they're not coming from myself. I didn't make them up. I didn't say, let's make your life the hardest it can be, and this is how we're going to do it. And they're not coming from my team, but they're coming from that regulatory body that we need to be compliant with. So I just explain that. And actually, I have a very recent story. These are all just so relevant. So I'm working with this site, and this operator is on these meetings, and he is just so frustrated. He says, you know, there's so much variability within this process. We can't test it this way. Well, and some, you know, our comments as a team were like, okay, well, if there's so much variability within this process, we can't validate it. We have to consider it a manual process. And he's like, oh, no, it's not that. It's, you know, and it's just a lot of back and forth. But he's just very frustrated with what we have to do and the documentation that's needed. So in the meeting, and I don't know how no one has said this before. That's what I said. I said, you know, we're not making these up. These are not from my company. These are not from our team. This is not from me. This is literally from the standards.
You can go online and look it up.
Yeah, and I said, I just want to remind everyone that we're not trying to make this hard, and I really appreciate everyone's time throughout this project. Because he was complaining, he's like, all these meetings are, taking up my production time. And I'm like, well, we have to get the strategy down, and you're going to be the one executing this. And once the validation is done, you're locked in for routine production this way. So it's better for you to get an input now versus being stuck in a process that you're going to hate for the rest of the years you're at the company. So, and then he shut up. I was shocked. I have not heard another comment from him. And I'm like, I'm surprised no one, and I'm like, maybe it's just, I don't know. Even my coworker was like, oh, that was a good comment. I said, I didn't think it was snide or anything. I was just, saying we're all a team here. I think you have to bring it back to, we're all trying to make the same end goal. So, okay, that is the scenario of the testing. But in any other situation, so this is outside of being frustrated with the requirements. So another meeting, I think it's completely unacceptable. So whether you're the team leader or the colleague, I think there are different ways you can address it. So this one I love. So if you're a team leader or the meeting leader, I think you should address it right there, then and there in the meeting. So again, very professional, short and sweet. I'm sorry this tone is unacceptable, so we'll have to regroup, and we'll be happy to continue in a professional manner if everyone is in agreement. Again, just slap them in the face. Like, if you're gonna act like a child, I'll drop you off at daycare. My God, like.
That is so good.
Yes, but the thing, I was thinking about this response a little bit further. And what do you do if you're not leading the meeting? What if, you're just, you can't jump in and say, we'll start the meeting when everyone's nice. You can't really do that if you're not the meeting leader. So if you're in a colleague setting, I would not engage during the meeting. I would just bring it up separately, whether you want to bring it up separately with that individual, whether it's best handled with your direct manager or maybe HR. It has to be escalated that far. But then it brings back a point too, if the team leader didn't do anything or if the meeting leader didn't do anything in that meeting, you got to think about that as well. Who's going to let that slide in a meeting?
Yeah.
Do you really want to interact with that type of individual and that will allow that to happen? So, but I think just in general, it's unacceptable. It's a professional environment. We're all frustrated and I don't know. But I think it's important to bring it back to like the team setting. I think it's always, you change the perspective. We're all trying to make the same end goal. Don't be mean. Why are you being mean? Because I'll be harder to work with in the future. So, how about you?
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting that like people do, and the reason why I wanted to touch on this one is because this did actually happen to me very recently, and I'm going to share the story in a second. But I always find it very interesting that people like have the balls to be disrespectful in meetings, because like I would never in a meeting, especially with like 20 plus people or even just, a couple people, be disrespectful to somebody and look at somebody in the eye in a professional work setting and be rude or be like, I don't know, like, I just can't believe that people, like, did they never learn of the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated? And if they did, and they're just, like, deflecting off of that anyway, that, like, you are a terrible person. Like, I don't know, like, I just feel so strongly about, like, it is baffling to me that people feel that behavior in corporate America is acceptable.
I completely agree. You really have to have a bad day if you're acting like that. I'm like, unreal.
Yeah. But, so I guess, I think the best thing that you can do in these situations is be calm, cool, and collected. This obviously is so much easier said than done. I had a recent situation like this happen to me. Luckily, I was in the office, but it was on Teams, so like nobody saw my facial reaction. If they did see my facial reaction, they would see that I was crying, but that is beside the point. I think it is really hard to be calm, cool, and collected. I think your response, if somebody is rude to you, is kind of like you said, Lexi, slap them in the face. Maybe a different way of saying, but you could be like, let's take this offline to sort out your issues before bringing this up to the larger group for discussion, because I don't want to waste anybody's time. So
there you go. Boom.
boom. And if they keep bringing it up, if they keep being rude, just keep deflecting to that. Like I that is like my go-to nowadays. I have people start arguing in meetings or something, or they're arguing towards me. I will, especially because I'm typically like leading the meetings, I'll be like, okay, you know, like let's make a note of this and then let's move on because we have other things to discuss. Let's take it offline. So I think that is a good tactic or strategy that you can use. But I think if you want to stay in dialogue, or if you have to stay in dialogue in the conversation, kind of like what you said, clarifying what you want and what you don't want. So like what you're saying, like, I don't want to make your life harder, but like we have to follow these rules. You know, I think that can, if you think about like, and I'm saying all these things because I just finished reading Crucial Conversations, which is what this book is all about.
I need to start that.
You need to read it. But if you think like a safe dialogue or safe environment is when you have mutual purpose and mutual respect. So this is so much easier said than done, obviously, but if this is happening to you in a meeting, think about like their story, like where are they coming from, what are their pain points. Be so calm, cool, and collected. And then once you've absolutely slayed this conversation, people are going to come up to you and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you handled that so well. So, okay, let me quickly just get into this story of like what happened to me, because this was really hard to like deal with in person. Like I said, it wasn't like face to face with them, it was on Teams. But essentially what happened was we have been working on this project that is not really like in the realm of our responsibility as a department. There is technically a different department that handles a project like this one. But like the leadership, the director level, and even like VP level within my department said, you know, this is such a complex issue. We should really keep it within our department because we have like the industry knowledge, because people have been working on this project for 6 years. So like,
oh my gosh,
the people that know what is going on is within this. Otherwise, we're just going to waste time trying to like give it to a different department, having to like bring them up to speed on what's going on. And there's this one individual who was a manager of a different group that we have to work with. So like I need his input to everything that we do on this project. Like it's not like we can just bulldoze him and continue to work anyway, even though he doesn't like agree with what we're doing. So we had so many meetings. We had so many like items that we were trying to tackle that we needed resourcing for. And I was asking him like, I need you to commit bodies. Like I need engineers from your group. You need to commit people to this project so we can move forward. And so we did all these meetings. You know, we had got verbal agreement as a team. Like, okay, we agree. We're going to tackle these 5 items. You know, I think we had like a huge long list of items, and we were able to cross things off and bring it down just to 5. And I was like, okay, great. We're good to go. Like, yes. So proud of you guys. We all worked together. I had documented it in meeting minutes. And it was with a smaller group that we were working through this issue with. And we have a weekly meeting for this project. And in this project, I said, okay, just want to let you guys know, like, a smaller group of us got together. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but this person is a manager level. And so they are one level above me. Or a couple of levels, whatever. And so I said, just want to let you guys know, thank you so much to the team. Like, we did a great job of figuring this out. This is when we're going to have this process validation. This is, like, the goal we're marching to. And the guy just, like, everyone was silent for a second on the Teams call. And then all of a sudden he was like, I'm just wondering where you came up with that, because I don't recall talking about this at all. And I was like speechless, because this guy has been in all these meetings. Like, he's been nodding his head. He's been agreeing. He's been receiving the emails. He's been like in every single meeting where I've been like, okay, can you agree to like give me a resource if we make this list smaller? Mm-hmm. And I literally was speechless. I was like, what? Like, I was stuttering, because I always stutter when I get nervous. And I was like,
yeah.
Can you just explain like where you're coming from? Just trying to like avoid it so that I can get more information. And he was just, you know, ranting on and on. I swear, for like a good 15-minute chunk. And at this point, he wasn't just like complaining about the project. He was attacking my character. And he was saying like, I know that you're new to this project, but this is like not how we do things. And I don't know why you thought it was acceptable to like do all these, like, totally attacking me. This meeting has like 25 people on that I'm like supposed to be the leader, you know? Like people are supposed to be like looking towards me, and I'm like, how are people going to look at me if you're doing this? So whatever, he does all this thing. Luckily my manager was on the call. So, you know, I keep asking him a couple questions in the midst of him like screaming on the phone. And I'm like, can you maybe define what you had in mind then? Like, what were your expectations? Finally, my manager stepped in, and my manager was like, what more do you want us to do? Libby spent all this time for the past month trying to sort this out, and she has sent emails and meetings. So my manager was there to back me up, which was awesome. But then, like, moral of the story, why I think you should try to not react is I eventually mustered up the courage to be like, okay, thank you for your feedback. I'll look into this after the meeting. I don't think we need to continue talking about it here because we're not going to solve it on this call with this audience. Few things he did wrong. First of all, he should have remembered in his little pea brain that we talked about this a million times. But second of all, for his age and his like seniority level, that was really immature and inappropriate for him to bring it up in front of like that group. You know, like if he had a problem, what he could have done is been like, hey, Libby, can you stay on the call a little bit longer? Or, hey, Libby, I'm going to call you right after this meeting. I want to talk to you about something. But no, he did not do that. After the meeting was over, I had like a swarm of people in the office come over to my desk. And like at that point, I was kind of like freaking out. Like my body language when someone does that to me in a meeting like shakes. My body like actually like it feels like I'm cold, like I have the shivers because I'm like so uncomfortable with like the experience that I just experienced. And everybody was like, wow, he just blew up, you know. So nobody said that like, oh, it was my fault or anything like that. They were just commenting on how unprofessional and inappropriate he was. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that story. I don't know if I'm making any point by continuing to go on.
No, that's, yeah.
You know, I'm just trying to say, like, if you can try to, like, not have emotion, deflect, and say, let's take this offline. And now, like, you know, we've been a couple more weeks in the project, and everybody remembers that one time that guy blew up. And everybody now is like, we have to invite him, you know, and you don't want to be that person. Yeah, so you're never going to be like the person people don't want to work with if you keep it under control.
That's a really good point. So, okay, a few follow-up questions because that made me so mad. That's so frustrating. And okay, so did you ever send like paper trail notes of like after?
So I told him in the meeting, I was like, we had so many meetings on this. If you want, I can send you the meeting minutes after this meeting. Which I did. And then some advice that I got from my mentor, my girl mentor who was on the call. She's not like, she doesn't do vacuums, but she was on the call. And she was like, unfortunately now, every single meeting that you have with that individual, you're going to have to document it via meeting minutes. Like even if it's just a short one-on-one meeting, I'm going to have to send. So that's what I do now. Every time I meet with this person, even if it's a 15-minute conversation, I sent him an email immediately. I created a folder in my Outlook where I keep the meeting minute or keep all these emails to him so that and this gets into a whole nother topic that we don't need to get into on this podcast because this episode is already pretty long, but it's all of these additional steps that now I have to account for along with my daily tasks and that like things that I need to get done. Now I need to make a special folder for him and document meeting minutes and like
he just wanted some attention. He wants to be special.
And it's just so ridiculous, but it's like unfortunately that's what I'm going to have to do from here. Maybe I won't do it forever, but every interaction that I have with this individual now, I track it, I document it, and I can, luckily in that situation, I also was able to point back to the other meeting minutes, but it's like, you know what? That's sometimes what you have to do.
Yeah. I feel like you responded way better than I would have. I would have literally probably cut him off when he started, and I would have said, actually, this was discussed in this meeting, and I'll send it shortly after this meeting is over.
See, and
I don't know if that's like a snide, like I can never tell if, I don't know, you know?
No, I think that's a good thing. Like, the reason I didn't do that, the only reason is because I was speechless, because I was shocked. Yeah. I think my body was literally in shock. I was in shock because we had talked about it for so long. And I would have loved to have some sort of a good comeback. The other thing that I was nervous about doing on that meeting was I didn't want to get into a situation where him and I were like arguing, you know? Like, I didn't want to be like, we already talked about this. I'll send you the meeting minutes. And then he like do another comeback. Cause I was like, ooh, then like, well, how does that make me feel? Like or how does that make me look to the other team members? Like, I don't want them to think I was picking a fight, even though I clearly wasn't, but you know?
Yeah,
so
I know. Like, it's always a hard.
Speechless.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, moral of the story is if you have someone disrespect you, obviously you can always go to HR, but like in the moment, how do you deal with it? Take it offline. Say, we're not going to be talking about that in this meeting. Thank you for your concern. I will send you the information after. And with that, I think we can probably wrap up this episode. I think we have a lot more good scenarios that we could also go through in a later episode. I think this was fun. Hopefully this was helpful. I'm really interested, like after a few more years of corporate under my belt, if I'm gonna go back one day and listen to this advice episode and be like, oh girl, you're so naive, you know, like I'm sure if there's people listening who are more senior in their career than we are, you guys probably have such better advice, but this is what we've encountered so far working as engineers in corporate.
Very good. Well, we only got through 3. We literally had so many, like Libby mentioned. We had like 20 different scenarios. Well, if you would like to give us some tea about some scenarios that you've encountered in your workplace, your job, your role, go to our Instagram at My Best Friends and Engineer. We post our tea of the weeks right before we record our episodes.
Yes, and make sure you guys are giving this podcast a 5-star rating and review. You can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, really. I think those might be the only 2 that you can leave a review on, though. We love reading the Apple Podcast written reviews, so if you guys just are feeling extra generous and you want to make our day, please leave us a written review. And then also, if you leave a review, you can be entered into our giveaway for a $100 Visa gift card. So to enter for that, you need to leave us a review, you need to screenshot it, and then upload it to our Google form, which is in the link in our Instagram bio.
Yes, and make sure to check out our compensation negotiation event, which is coming up on October 18th, so you can learn how to negotiate for your compensation so you get paid adequately to deal with these hooligans that we've talked about.
Heck yeah.
in this episode.
And that will be linked in our episode show notes below for you to grab a ticket to that event.
Awesome. Well, where can they find you?
You can find me, Libby, at Libby Beyond the Label on Instagram and TikTok if you'd like to follow me for more Women in STEM content. And then Lexi, where can they find you?
You can find me at Engineer Lexi on Instagram and TikTok.
And then if you guys want to follow the podcast, like we've been saying, just make sure you look up My Best Friends and Engineer on Instagram. In our link tree, in our bio, we have like all of our links. So those are there for you to access. And I think with that, we can close out another good episode of My Best Friends and Engineer.
Yep. Oh, that was so weird. Okay, we can keep it. I'm Lexi.
And I'm Libby.
And thanks for listening.
To My Best
Friends and Engineer.